What's going on, everybody? It's Q Jackson, host of BLK Talk. Look, I was over here preparing for another amazing episode, but look, I need you guys to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell so that you guys don't miss any of our amazing conversations. Have a new episode coming to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? It's Q Jackson, host of BLK Talk. And guess what? I am back with another amazing episode with an even more amazing person. Today, I have Greg Jr. live on BLK Talk. Greg is an LGBTQ plus advocate, HIV advocate, star of Mathis Family Matters. This is one of the busiest advocates that we know, and is out here doing some amazing things in the world. So, guys, help me welcome Greg Mathis Jr. to the show.
What's up, everybody? Q, can I tell you, I love the intro to this show, by the way. It feels so joyful to me.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Uplifting.
And look, I appreciate that, and I'm going to tell you a little secret. I've never told anybody, but as I do like the intro of the show, I go off to the side and I watch people's reaction to the intro. And once I saw that smile, I'm like, oh yeah, I got it.
I love that.
Yes. So for the people who may be unfamiliar with you, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Greg Mathis Jr. I am a reality TV star on Mathis Family Matters, but also a political advocate and actor, and doing a lot of other things in entertainment, which is more recent. But my background and my bones were built in politics. So more recently, building the entertainment out, doing Mathis Family Matters with my family was something that was not I would say normal for me. In my 30 years of life, I'd never been on TV to that extent before, but it was an exciting journey. And so now I'm riding to see where it will go. And most excitingly, it's given me a platform to really do more of the work I was doing in politics.
Absolutely. So I became familiar with you as the promo for the show started to air on different channels. Watching the show, it's a feel-good family show. It's on a network, of course, that was known for the Kardashians, but I'm watching it for Mathis. Like I love it. So you guys brought something different yet relatable for those of us who look like us. So thank you guys for that.
No, and you're right. I mean, because even with, just the way our family is, every family has their field, their career, their industry. And even though my dad's been on TV for 25 years as part of entertainment, a lot of us have really been focused on kind of socially driven careers. I worked in politics for 10 years, as I talked about. I worked for President Obama, Senator Mark Warner, Gary Peters, and a number of different domestic policy facing roles. But, people don't know, a lot of folks don't know this about my dad. Before he was, Judge Mathis that he is today, he was a political staffer. He actually was Reverend Jesse Jackson's campaign manager on his presidential campaign in Michigan, which was the only northern state that Reverend Jackson won during that race. And so, he was really, really big in local Detroit politics before he actually got on television. So kind of runs in our blood a little bit.
So how does it feel to know that in some ways you are following in your father's footsteps, but setting a trail of your own?
Yeah, I would say this. It feels more now than ever that I'm living in my purpose. And that's what is always the best feeling to me, is just knowing that I'm doing what I am truly passionate about and work that I want to do. And I encourage everybody to do that wherever that leads you. What I'll say about my dad is that the roadmap that he's provided to me, because we do have similarities in what we're interested in and what we believe our purposes are, is I'm so grateful that he's laid that roadmap for me, because a lot of people don't have that. And so when I do have questions, I'm like, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? I have an encyclopedia of knowledge I can tap into at any time. And that's probably what I'm most grateful for, is just, he's walked these roads. He knows some of these same people. And so as long as I'm willing to do the work, I got somebody I can always go and reference when I need help.
Absolutely. So politics, you said you were in politics for 10
Mm-hmm.
years. So growing up, of course, you had the opportunity to watch certain things. But as you started to come into your own, how did politics play a role in what would eventually become for those next 10
Man.
years of life?
Yeah, it made me more compassionate. It made me more compassionate, even though I think a lot of people, when you work in politics, there is a big risk of getting jaded because you see a lot of BS that goes on too, a lot of, just a lot of stuff you don't agree with. We got a big country with a lot of competing priorities. So when you work in those rooms where they're trying to figure out how to make everything work, you see a lot of deals get cut that you may not always agree with. But what it taught me in terms of compassion is just, one of the reasons I got into politics in the first place was because I wanted to help people. And I worked on healthcare policy. I worked in education for a bit when I was when I was in government. And so I worked on a number of domestic policy issues. And it hurt, and it was eye-opening, but I feel like it was such an important experience for me to see the level of poverty I think that we and suffering that we have in this country, and the ability that we have as government officials or even as people to push our government to do more to help those people. Seeing that day in and day out, and just the people that we could be helping that we aren't helping was probably one of the best experiences I got from politics, because it really emboldened me to keep doing a lot of this work.
And I was going to ask you, what was one thing that when you first started that you did not know about yourself that you discovered toward the end of that time?
How little sleep I could run on. But I mean, to be serious about that, I guess the thing that I learned is how not taking no for an answer is probably one of the most effective ways to get things done. And that's not to say that I don't believe in compromise, that I don't believe in working together, because that's important to get anything done. You got to compromise. You have to get you have to build consensus to get things done. But one of people's, and mine too, one of people's favorite words to say when they hear somebody else's idea is no. And so many times when I worked on the Hill, like the first answer was no to anything that I ever wanted to work on. Any bill that we wanted to push, any priority, it's always no. And so it taught me early on that no doesn't really mean anything, because there were so many times that we got things done that we never thought were possible. I mean, even with the Affordable Care Act, like protecting that bill, getting that bill passed into law, implementing that bill. There were so many no's that we had to get over. It taught me that you really just have to push through when you know that you are purpose-driven and doing what you believe in.
And speaking of being purpose-driven, throughout the show, we got the opportunity to learn some things about you, as far as the engagement, as far as, your fiance now. Congratulations.
Actually, that's the funny part. No. And I actually so if you go back and rewatch the last episode, we tricked everybody. He actually did not propose to me. He got down on one knee and we announced that we were moving to LA with my family. So they were excited about that, but also upset that it wasn't a real engagement. So we still got some stuff in store. Hopefully it's coming soon. I've been giving them a hard time about it, so we'll see what happens.
And you know what? Speaking of that, how does it feel? Because for a lot of gay people, a lot of bisexual, a lot of people who are held to this certain standard or whatever by their families, they're often afraid to come to them with their truth, whatever that truth may be. Whether you are somebody of LGBT background, whether you are, a 16-year-old girl who has just found out she was pregnant. We're normally scared to come to our family with these things. But for you, you have a big support system. You have a very supportive family. How do you think that helped you become comfortable in who you are today?
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked that question, because I think it's such an important one. I know for me personally, knowing that my family was supportive of me, I think just helped me get on my own journey to self-acceptance a lot
Mhm.
sooner than I would have been able to otherwise. Now, with that being said, it still took me over 30 years of my life to really come out authentically and say I am a gay Black man to the to the entire world. It
Yeah.
took me 30 years, even with my family being completely supportive of who I was. But I know that that support, it just allowed me to be. And I think that's so important that we can all be who we are without fear of losing people that we love, people, without fear for our actual safety. I know that my family situation is super special, and I'm so grateful for it because um, I know it's tough for people. I don't know how my life would have turned out if I didn't have the family that I have, especially when you hear so many stories about people who get kicked out of their homes. And so what I always say is to folks in our community who are struggling, because I know that I'm in a privileged position when it comes to my family, is that, life is tough. It is difficult when it comes to our family, but I always say your family that doesn't have to be blood, and that's a
Yeah.
big thing in our community that I'm sure you know about too. We have to, for the sake of our own self-preservation, we have to have our real family and our chosen family. I'm blessed that my real family was accepting of who I was and allows me to be the authentic version of myself. But we all need our family. And for those that unfortunately don't have that family, I would encourage them to seek out that chosen family of people who love you because they're out there.
Yes, yes, they are. And I too have been in a position where I felt blessed and privileged to have the support of my family during those times when I was trying to figure out who I was. But I also noticed that as I got comfortable with myself, I attracted people, or I would come across people in life that did not have that were not as fortunate. And some of them kind of became that chosen family that you were just mentioning. And I felt like I needed to be there. Even the love that I would get from my parents or grandparents, they would also share that with these people who will become friends or family to me. Do
Mm-hmm.
you feel that your experiences with your family has led you to kind of be that leader, that strong person for people who are not as fortunate as you?
I think it definitely has, for two reasons. I think on the first hand, my family, and knowing that privilege that I have, I want people, I want to do what I can to help other people have that same
Mhm.
feeling and have that same support system. And so even what you saw with Mathis Family Matters, I mean, we got so many people who reached out to us after that episode with my dad and I aired, where he expressed his support for me and challenged me to be
Yeah.
outspoken about my sexuality. We both got so many messages, both from parents and children, talking about how that moment on the show helped them in their own family and their own relationships be more accepting of either their gay child or a queer child reaching out to us telling us their parents are more accepting because they saw our show. And that's huge. I mean, that was one of the main reasons we did the show in the first place. And so you know to answer your question, I guess I would say, one, like, my family has definitely helped me from that perspective, just knowing that we're making an impact on other people. And the second one is my dad, man. I just don't know that the example that he has set for Black fathers, I think, I don't know the words to put it into, but that's just so big to me. And I want us to be able to share that with as many people as possible. And that's just a big part of why we did the show in the first place. Because people
And
deserve to be free,
yeah,
deserve to be free, deserve to have love, and deserve to have that support. And the more that we share that message with people, show people how it's done, hopefully the more people will be able to experience that reality.
and speaking of that, with the show as a whole, from the siblings to the parents to the in-laws and everybody that's involved in the making of Mathis Family Matters, bringing a show like that to how important do you personally feel like
Mhm.
it was in the representation of our culture?
Well, I think it's huge. And even for another reason, in a sense of when we talk about our culture, is I think it's unfair that oftentimes Black families get a bad rep for being more homophobic than people from other ethnicities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I participated in myself sometimes because you hear something so many times, you start to repeat it. But when you really take a step back, I mean, there's homophobia everywhere in every race and every religion. And so one of the things that I really think that Mathis Family Matters did was put a positive example of a Black family that was supportive of their queer family member out there for the world to see
Yeah.
and hopefully start to change a little bit. I mean, we have Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union who are doing a phenomenal job of being publicly supportive of their child as well. And
Yeah.
so I believe that Mathis Family Matters was another important example that shows our culture and the rest of the world that we aren't this stereotypical community that rejects people just because they're homophobic or just because they're, part of the LGBTQ community.
Absolutely. Now, you said prior to the show, you hadn't been on television, but now that the show has aired, the show is like you are everywhere. I personally, my 9 to 5 is I work in HIV education and prevention. And I
Mm-hmm.
walked into the office one day and I said, oh, well, that face looks familiar. And this guy right here, this guy right there sitting in the lobby, I'm like, wow. So, I mean, you're everywhere. Now, first of all, let's talk about this cover.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel to know that the work that you had been doing was important enough for HIV Plus magazine to honor you with a cover?
I will be honest. I will say this. I always feel a little uneasy mixing kind of like advocacy with magazine covers because
Mhm.
it's just like something about it to me is just like, okay, this is work, this is advocacy, this is, I don't know why I have this complex that it shouldn't be about magazine covers. But once I got over that insecurity, I think I was just like, I'm on the cover of a magazine. Like
Yeah.
I got the copy spread all out in my house. I got them on my coffee table and stuff. And I guess at the end of the day, I had to realize that this is part of the work and this is part of
Mhm.
making sure that people are aware because the bottom line is that we are so close to ending the HIV epidemic. I believe that we can end this epidemic through prevention, which is making sure that you take the steps, whether it's medication or otherwise protecting yourself from contracting the virus. And we have
Mhm.
treatments that allow people to live a long life and not transmit the virus. So if we do the community work to get that message out, we could really stop HIV transmission entirely. And so um, part of me was just like, oh, like, I don't know how I feel about being on the front of a magazine for advocacy work. It seems a little self serving, but I also understand that that is how you get this very important message out. And it feels good to be able to use my platform to advocate for something that's so important and close to my heart.
Yes, it definitely is. So for you, you said it's close to your heart. So,
Mm-hmm.
we know that in the LGBTQ plus community, that's something that has been around for years. We've lost a lot of people to it. We've not only lost, lesbians, bisexuals, we've lost everyone
Mm-hmm.
to HIV and AIDS over the years. And slowly but surely, these conversations are becoming more frequent. What I notice when I go to work every day, there are more straight Black men that want to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There are couples that come in as a part of their first date routine before we're gonna have sex. Let's get tested. Let's have those conversations. Let's get on prep and things like that because there are plenty of things out here that help reduce the risk of contracting HIV.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, what sort of education did you have to indulge in order to, become knowledgeable as you're going
Yeah.
around the world speaking?
So it's funny. My education was multifaceted. It was partly trial by fire. I have, as we talked about, as a member of the LGBT community, especially a gay Black male, I do have a significant number of friends who are impacted directly in terms of persons living with HIV. And so, that learned experience of what I see them go through on a day-to-day basis when we talk about stigma, when we talk about, the shame that comes along with that virus and how it stands in the way of us getting rid of it. That was trial by fire. You see it day in and day out. And that includes, unfortunately, my Uncle Steve, who passed away due to complications from HIV. But he did live, 20 years healthy because of the advances in medicine. But watching what he went through his entire life, I mean, being afraid to even go see his own doctor because there was so much stigma around his diagnosis, to the point that he was, that's a disservice to his own health. And we see that happen with so many people who are HIV, who are living with HIV because they don't want to go in and seek treatment. Because of the stigma that's around it. And so the more that we can educate folks and take away the stigma of it, that it's a death sentence, which is now false, that, all persons living with HIV can transmit the virus. That's not true either. I think it's important that we educate people on these facts so that they can make informed, healthy decisions for themselves that protect them, and also make sure that we can really, really bring it into this thing. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No. Yeah, it actually did. And speaking of your uncle, that brings me to another thing. Having the conversation surrounding HIV and AIDS, but also going to the doctor. A Black man, they often say that Black men don't go to the doctor. They'll, deal with things on their own until sometimes, unfortunately, it's too late, whether it's HIV, whether it's, whatever it may be. So those conversations are important as well to have, regarding health overall.
Right.
So how do you incorporate the overall health, being healthy?
Yes. And that's what I definitely say. There has to be a 3-prong approach. And that third prong is community for me when it comes to this particular issue, HIV advocacy. The first two I talked about were prevention, which is, transmission as well as protecting yourself, but treatment. And then the third one has got to be that community work to educate folks and get the message out. If one of the main things that is science now is that U equals U. If you're undetectable, you're untransmittable. You can't give the virus to other people. And so did that answer that question? Sorry.
So yeah, kind of. I was speaking of health overall.
Yeah,
being aware.
That's what I was making sure, because I was like, I didn't know. Yeah, so in terms of health overall, I worked in health policy directly on the Hill for a number of years. And look, I mean, this is a personal thing too, where I think as a Black man, you can understand. We all know what happened with the Tuskegee experiment,
Yes.
Where you had government sanctioned institutions experimenting on African American people, Black people. And so there is a skepticism with a lot of us when it comes to going to see a doctor, because how do you rebuild that trust? I also think it's we know it's institutional when we know that in this country, 80% of people get their healthcare insurance from their employer. We're the only industrialized country in the world that does that. Most countries provide their citizens with healthcare coverage. There's universal healthcare. We allow our employers in this country to determine, historically, that's how we determined it before the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, was that you got your healthcare insurance from your employer. Typically, Black people have been shut out of the healthcare system, have been shut out of the labor market at higher rates than their white counterparts. And so if you don't have a job, you don't have healthcare, we don't have that history of interacting with doctors, interacting with the healthcare system. And so again, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that, it's an issue of Black folks not wanting to go to the doctor. I really think it's an issue of we haven't had the historical interactions with the healthcare system because we've been mistreated by it or shut out by it. And so now the question is, how do we educate Black folks who've been shut out of the healthcare system about how to interact with it? I think our government has an obligation to do that work to help repair its trust with our community, which does come through investing in community organizations that can share important healthcare messages with our communities. But that trust is going to take an additional work to repair because it was damaged in the way that it was.
So with that being said, what sort of advances or conversations need to be had in
Yes.
order to make that a more
So
comfortable
I wrote an
conversation?
op-ed in January, and I mean, you know this issue because you've worked on it as well. But one of the main things I said that we need to be asking for is funding. And this was in regard to HIV advocacy, but I think it cuts across the board on any issue, especially healthcare issues. One of the things we asked for was that the federal government prioritize more funding directly to community nonprofits who are doing work on the ground. And the reason that's so important is because if I'm trying to connect with someone and relate to them on an important issue, we listen to people who look like us and who we can relate to. We trust people who look like us and who we can relate to. And so funding goes a lot further when we're talking about community work and trying to get important public health messages out, when we invest in community organizations that know the populations they're working with directly, not these larger institutions that may be great for certain purposes, like research purposes, implementing large scale studies, but don't necessarily relate to the communities they're doing the work in. So people don't digest the healthcare messages they're trying to disseminate oftentimes. So I think that's one change that we could definitely make that would help improve how our communities interact with the healthcare system, is give us some people who look like us to talk to us.
Yes. Now, speaking of community, this is National Pride Month. And pride, that's a word that a lot of people use, but I don't always think a lot of people truly understand the importance of that word. So for you, what does pride represent to you?
To me, it represents the ability to be myself and to have joy about who I am. I lived so long of my life not being who I was and hiding who I was, running away from who I was and shrinking myself into somebody else because I was afraid that people would find out about my sexual orientation. And pride represents the fact that we don't have to do that, that you are safe here. You know, you feel safe. You can celebrate who we are and celebrate everything about us. It's a time, you know, there's so much heaviness when you think about how our community is under attack, whether it's in Florida, Texas, different countries, the laws that are coming across the books these days. It's heavy. And we live with that. Our community lives with that. So to me, pride is a time, it really should be every time, but if at any time, pride is a time where we can come together, I hope, and not have to worry so much about the heaviness, but give ourselves license to live in joy and celebration for a little bit.
Yes. Now, speaking of joy, celebration, and living, what are some things about you that we may not have had the opportunity to see on the show, and we may not have had the opportunity to see via like social media? What are some things about you that you want the people to know?
So you know why this is a hard question for me? I feel like I put so much out there for good or for bad. I don't know what y'all do or don't know about me. I'm not gonna lie. I can start shooting stuff out there, but odds are that people already know it. But let's see. I don't know. I guess if we're talking in broad terms, I would say, I mean, they could probably pick this up themselves, but I'm like a nerd. You know, I got a lot of little quirky interests. Whether it's like rewatching Harry Potter all the time. I'll give you an example. For Valentine's Day this year, Elliot, which I put this on social media too, so people probably already know, but my boyfriend Elliot bought me a cryptex, which is like this device that comes from the movie The Da Vinci Code. When they went on it's basically like a treasure hunt type movie where they're going on a quest for this great holy grail document. And but he bought me one of those because he knows I'm a nerd, and he was like, it's gonna take you forever to crack the code to this thing. And just little small stuff like that. I love animals. I go to the zoo a lot.
Okay. So do you have any animals?
I got 2 French bulldogs. I do, Knox and Dax, and they are sleep right now, but they are a
Oh,
handful.
I see.
They
Okay, a dog dad. Are you into plants? Are you a plant dad too?
So I'm not, but you know what? I'm about to start. I just bought I bought a basil plant today. I got it in my window, and I hope that I hope it lives. So I'm gonna start with that because I promise you, this past weekend I just told somebody. I said I think I want to be a plant daddy. I
You
said
should. I'm
I'm gonna
telling
start
you,
small.
it is the most exciting thing. I discovered years ago from my grandmother that I had, a bit of a green thumb. And then
Mhm.
during COVID, I was in the house. I didn't have to go to work. I, wasn't doing much. So I found myself going to Walmart and Home Depot a lot, buying plants that were just kind of dead, just bringing them back to life.
Wait,
And
what? See, I'm
yes,
killing the plants, and you doing the reverse.
I'm bringing them back to life. And
Okay,
right
so
now,
we're gonna have to talk offline then, because I
no,
need
no,
tips
for
from you.
real.
But
Like we
continue.
can. I gave some plants away for Christmas gifts last year because I feel like everybody needs a plant in their house. But as
Mhm.
of right now, I have 32 plants in this house. I have a freaking rainforest in here.
So let me ask you a question. What would you say is like a easy starter plant that I will not kill? Because I have a
I'm
feeling these
glad
days.
you asked. Right here. This is
What
a
is that?
pothos. So mostly everyone's grandmother has had one of these.
I was about
This
to say that looked like the one that grows long and it can hang
It
down. Is that
grows and
okay?
grows and grows and grows. All you have to do is water this thing maybe, once a week, and just let it grow. And then there are areas where you can cut it. You can
Got you. So you
put
just
some
got 30 of
water.
those then.
You said what?
So you just got 30 of those then.
No, no, I actually
I'm joking.
don't.
I'm joking.
I have 20 of these. I'm not gonna lie. And off of one plant, I created over 30 plants, and those are the ones that I gave
Because
people
you cut
for.
the stems and then you put them in water.
Yeah,
And
cut them,
okay.
put them in water. Once you see them root, then you can like plant them. And I love getting pictures from friends of theirs actually growing in their home. So that's kind of like my thing now. I'm a plant dad until I become a dog dad or an actual dad. So
Well,
if you
I'm
need
definitely
some,
gonna email
some
you
help,
about that one.
I got you. I got you.
Because
So what's going
we had
on?
a fig tree for a little. Well, we had 3 fig trees. We killed every single one of them.
Oh God, no. So neither one of y'all got a green thumb.
Nope. We thought
Uh,
we tried and we tried, but it ain't working out. We even
See,
killed
and
banana
it's so
plant.
much sun back there. Like
I
plants
know,
love
I know,
sun.
I know.
Uh, okay.
Granted, when we killed the fig trees, it was in DC. In our defense, we didn't have as much natural light.
Well, now you do. So, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna cut you a piece of this and send
And
it
put
on
it in the
out
mail.
there to
Thank
you.
you.
Yes. I got you. So look, what do you have coming up? I know, summer is kicking off.
Hmm.
You've done some amazing things over the past few months. Been honored in some
Hmm.
different cities for the amazing work you're doing. But what
Yes.
else do you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm excited for Pride Month. We talked about that a little bit. We'll be in DC actually for there's a celebration at the White House, and then also we're going to be walking in the parade there with Mayor Bowser. So really looking forward to that trip. What else? I feel like sometimes my weeks just like go by in a blur. We are developing, like I told you, my future. Got a lot of exciting things in the entertainment space. I can't talk about yet, but I would say just stay tuned. We have our family's production company, Mathis Production. So we have lots of good stuff that we're developing through there. And,
Okay.
um, you know, it's lots of excitement in store. So stay tuned.
Yes, and guys, make sure you follow him on
Please
social
do.
media in
I'm
order
fun, I
to
promise.
make sure you guys follow him on social media to check out all of that greatness. But before we go and before you give your social media, you know what? As a matter of fact, go ahead and give us your social media right now.
Yeah, it's simple. It's Greg Mathis Jr., just, JR at the end, one word on all social media platforms.
Boom. And what is one thing, as we, like I said, are entering Pride Month, what is one thing that is centered around Pride that you would like to share with the people?
So one thing, I talked about this a little bit earlier. But one thing that I would say about pride is community.
Okay. And what
Community.
inspiration, what things would you say to inspire that one individual, those individuals that may not know the importance of pride, that may not know who they really truly are, the ones that are afraid to be their authentic self? What is some inspiration that has gotten you through that you would like to share with them?
I mean, I would say pride is exactly what it sounds like. It is the fact that you should have pride in who you are, the authentic version of yourself, and not who people tell you you should be. And when you do have that, I know for me, I feel more powerful than I've ever felt and happier than I've ever been because now I can finally experience the joy of life.
Yes.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Somebody just called me and I picked it up by accident. Are you still there?
Yes, you're still there.
do that again, and did you get it?
Oh, no. I got it. Hopefully you
Okay.
guys out there got it. And I appreciate you so much. We've been trying to make this happen for a minute, but Greg has been a little busy. But
I have been. I'm ready to. You asked me what I was going to do next. I'm ready to lay down for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to
take a break,
sit down, and just relax for a little bit.
And you deserve it because you've been out here doing some things. So you said you've been busy. That calendar's been a little packed. So I need you to go ahead and set some time on that calendar for yourself to enjoy yourself so that
Self-care.
You can be back out here and give your best to the world.
Self-care.
Yes. And I appreciate you so much. And I enjoyed the conversation. And guys, make sure you follow Greg on all social media, Greg Mathis Jr., to keep up with everything that he has going on. Greg, appreciate you again. And anytime you want to come on and have a